If all else fails, unplug it.
Throwing against the wall. All right, hopefully.
He won't be able to hear you yet. You'll know in a second.
Okay, he's good now.
Yeah. It's an awful. Oh, okay. It really does make that noise.
Yeah, when the light.
Now, you can switch it back. Can you hear us now, Bert?
He just sent me a text, he can't.
Yes, I can. Thank you. Yes.
It only took 3 people, 1 landscaper and 2 computer techs.
I'm not.
Oh, sorry.
Just married to one.
Oh.
I just play one on.
You're the proximity.
You're staying at holiday.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I would just like to really briefly go through this document because as folks may have seen, it's over 90 pages. So it's hefty. We did generate a lot of data. However, the way it's organized, I just really briefly want to go through it because it is by chapter basically. So I think it would be important for folks as they're editing their respective chapters to kind of hone in on that. So just some, is going? Oh. Just some overview. We had over 40 individuals attend the event, including about 11 children. I didn't get a confirmation because I didn't want to walk up to kids and say, how old are you? But just kind of visual. So the structure was walk-in. A lot of people were kind of just hanging out for, half an hour to an hour at the various stations. We did have several attendees who arrived at 5 on the dot and stayed until a little after and kind of made full use of their time at the 4 stations that we had. So the 4 next slides are printouts that were at every station. So we had 4 stations and we just had these questions that our consultant Meg Bailey also mentioned in her introduction speech there to have folks be mindful of. So who's being left out, whether that's demographically, a specific group, an interest, what are we missing? What could be clearer? Does this lead back to our goals as a community? So basically these 4 prompts were at all of the tables just to remind folks that as they were looking at all this information, it was really important to remember these key questions. So station 1, envisioning and prioritizing your preferences. There were 32 different note cards with different scenarios that envisioned businesses, town center layouts, recreational opportunities that a future Southwood could contain. So station 1 had all of these. I won't go through all of them now. And I presume that we can post this presentation on our website so that members of the public can also access. So there were 32 of these different index cards. And the idea was to get folks to go to the table where station 1 was and pick their top 5 of these 32. These are just some photos, some examples of the ones people chose. So just to give a sense of how the flow was. And then we collated it at the end. Dave really graciously did that. He and Randy were organizing that table. So they collated that and we have some numbers here. Next, station 2. This is where we had chapters of the master plan, the 8 chapters. So we had the 8 thematic chapters. And the instructions for folks were, we basically just printed out something like this, double-sided, and we had a table, and folks could read each chapter and then jot down some notes as to what they thought could be rephrased, what could be clear, what could be more specific. So station 2, I'll just go through 1, for instance, public services and facilities. So we have our strategies at the top, and I gave them a specific number so that if people did want to correlate to a comment, a rephrase, an edit, a suggestion, they could jot that down in the note card, which made it then a lot easier for me to document that feedback, transcribe that, and then actions were also there. So we gave people the opportunity to analyze both strategies and actions. My feedback for each of these, or rather their feedback that I typed up, from all of the index cards that we got, there were over 100 comments. And some people edited all 8 chapters and then came back to the table and edited some more. It was, I guess, a really engaging table. Which surprised me for a Saturday afternoon, but that means that it was accessible, which was the goal. The feedback for each chapter is going to be this area down here. It says feedback from public. And then this is everything that we collected and that I have typed up. And I would just recommend to folks who are editing chapters to kind of hone in on your chapter and read the feedback. Some of it is a little vague. Obviously, we'll get like 1-word responses from folks. Others just kind of want clarification. Others don't have specific points that they're analyzing. They just have general comments for the chapter. So that's labeled as general comment. So here you can see some examples, people specifically looking at points like 4H. You know, let's not forget about our handicap population. So that's good that people are remembering different groups in the community that we want to make sure are not being you know, excluded. Some of them are very simple comments like, yes, definitely agree, which is good. It's nice to get affirmation. So yeah, I won't go through all of these, but we have lots of information for all of these chapters, historic and cultural. You know, some of it is phraseology suggestions, land use chapter, economic development, and so on. So I think that's probably the most data-rich component of it, but you know, hopefully if you have a chance to look at this, you'll just be looking at most, if you want to be limited in your scope, just your chapter, and that should be 3 or 4 pages worth of data, not 92. Though I recommend, you know, you give a look to everything if possible. Station, the next station, station 3, futuring our built environment. This was a really popular station as well. This was where we were looking at architectural precedents. This is something that our consultant also suggested for us, looking at different visual scenarios of built environments. So businesses, layouts for the downtown area, open space, recreation that could happen, again, in a future Southwick. We also have the caveat that we chose most of these based on them being scenarios that could actually be funded with currently available grant money, because we knew that was going to be a question. This is lovely. This is a pie in the sky idea. It's great. Is this going to cost me more in taxes? In most of these instances, I was able to document current grant opportunities that directly correlated to that specific visual precedence. So we had people put a green sticker underneath the photo if they liked it, a red sticker if they didn't, as well as the opportunity to leave a sticky note. So going on to station 3 and the results. So here are the grants that are available if people do want to look into it a bit more. We had for this, just as an example, it's a kind of modernish blocky building, and we're employing some architectural revival to keep the same footprint, same building, but trying to fit it into an older classic style. This is based off of survey results that we got last summer, people wanting a colonial town center or a classic New England town center. So we have 16 participants that said yes, 3 said no, and then we have the notes that were left by people, the sticky notes that some people did to just give a little bit more specificity about their opinion. So this goes on. We have mixed use examples, other examples of mixed use of commercial space and outdoor eating, industrial kind of more modern style buildings that have businesses, industrial style commercial buildings. We tried to include the whole spectrum, again, trying to make sure that we encapsulated everything that was mentioned in our survey. Refurbishing historical buildings, dog parks for recreation. I won't go into the minutia, but needless to say, there are parts of this, just like station 1, that are going to correlate to some chapters. For instance, if you're doing, if you're doing history as one of the chapters, this photo might be relevant to you just because this is discussing the reuse and refurbishment of historical buildings, and you get to gauge kind of what people thought. Again, small pool, only 40 people, but just it's helpful as we're getting to this stage, this final stage of the master plan, and looking at chapters and editing and finessing to make sure that we're capturing, you know, every kind of viewpoint that we can. Dog park might apply to folks who are focusing on recreation. Wayfinding signs might focus on people or might be more for the economic development chapter. Sculpture parks, that could be recreation too, or culture, and so on. So, Station 4, just really quickly, I did want to show this is the last station. We had a children's station. It was also very well attended. I just wanted to kind of show the work that had been generated by our younger generation. So a home and a store of books. So we have some folks who'd like to see some more arts and culture, build a stage, make an ice cream shop, build a garden. Can you draw a playground? This was a prompt from Meg Bailey, who was managing the kids' table. A basketball court, she brought building blocks. A kitty dog park, dream pool, which correlates actually to a point that someone made in the in one of the recreation chapters, I believe, where they actually asked when get a town pool. So good to see that there was kind of an intergenerational range in terms of interest in the pool. Swimming pool with lights, beach. This is an interesting example. This person, this young person, we saw them building this and we asked them, what is this? And she was telling us, oh, it's a big building with a basketball hoop, restaurant with candy, all these other things. A farm contained inside of the building with horses because she likes horse riding, toys and books. And then she said, you could work there too. They have like an adult place for you to be, and my school can be there. So I was like, being a child of the 90s, I was like, is that a mall that you're talking about? She was like, no, that's like so passé. She's like, no, this is one place where everything can be. So it's interesting to see, I think this person was about 8 years old, thinking about mixed use in this other way that maybe generationally there is something to, including a few different things within a single space. It kind of seems to be where some people are going. And then just last, I want to conclude just a little spiel for speculative design, because I think a lot of people questioned why we did this event, why it was so visual, why we did the kind of design thinking format that we did. I work as a designer and as a product developer, and I've been using speculative design as a methodology for the last 8 years since it kind of came into the forefront. And the idea is that you visualize possible future experiences. And we use it in my industry specifically to innovate new products that then become kind of the benchmark and standards in our field. So it's not as hokey as just kind of speculating and visualizing. There's an actual end product to it. There's 2 extra steps to speculative design versus typical design, and that's exploration and visualization. And that's what this workshop was about. We look for emerging technologies, cultural shifts, and current events that could affect our project in the future. That's what we do in speculative design. And we prototype, we do storyboards, we do sketches, but then we also do simulations and mock-ups because they help us actually better understand as designers and developers what they feel like in the real world. And I think that's what we captured on the 17th of June. So at its core, it's about questioning the present and imagining possible futures. And I think that's exactly what this is all about the past year and a half. Last slide here with speculative design. It can get a little bit interesting in that the probable, we look at it through this prism. Probable is we're looking at the standpoint of the present. We're here in 2023 right now, right? July 2023. We're looking into 2040. We're at this present point. We're looking at this prism. The possible futures, the plausible futures, the probable futures, those words all sound really similar. Probable is like the stuff that's most likely going to happen based on trend reports that we read. It's not really like that, that extraordinary. We can predict it. It'll probably happen judging from how things are. Plausible is a little bit more of a narrow prism. That's where we start to delve into, more interesting possibilities, different insights, different scenarios. Alternative futures is what we call it. And then possible, that's where it gets really kind of fun. And I think that's what we also captured on the 17th. This is where we kind of start to test the limits of what's feasibly and scientifically possible in our field. In this case, we can also look at it as what's feasibly and administratively and legally possible because we're looking at this in the government sense, right? So there's this very narrow little area called the preferred version. And that's this spot between plausible, probable, and probable. possible, plausible, and probable. And that's kind of the golden spot. That's the Goldilocks spot. If you can develop a plan, a product, in our scenario, chapters, and steps that can kind of capture all of those, be a little bit pie in the sky, but at the same time, still be heavily based in the probable and in the trend reports that we have now, we can actually plan for something that is better than what we currently have at this time. So I just implore folks, as they're looking at all these visual examples, don't get overwhelmed with that. Try to remember what that preferable future is, because that's why we all signed up to do this. So, and that's why I think we had the participation that we had. People felt that they could dream a little bit at this event, but at the same time, now it's our job to find out how we can make that possible. So hopefully that's a good overview of how to approach this. Focus on the pages that are maybe most relevant to your chapter. Don't get overwhelmed with the rest. But you take a look and see what people have said, because I think there's a wide range of opinions. So thank you.
All right, that document went to all the members of the committee?
Yeah.
You've seen it? Okay. And you're scared? No. I did focus in on the housing piece, so took notes on that and caught a couple things that, would be useful to adjust our strategy and actions on. So, any comments from the committee?
One of the things that was interesting.
Oh, I didn't, we don't have wireless mics, so if you can speak
Sure.
as loud.
One of the things that was interesting, I sort of scanned kind of the summary and Chris and I were talking in email too, was that there were red threads regardless of age, like say they expressed it different ways, but they were saying the same thing just through their own filter. And so, and I jotted down like a few that I thought I kept seeing said slightly different way, but the whole idea of mixed use, like you said, that child was describing mixed use, but lots of people talked about it, but then they got into specifics about what mixed use meant to them, which might be different than somebody else. But the message was mixed use, and then we'll figure out remember, it's like the why, the how, and the what. Thanks. We'll figure out.
No, not working, but.
We'll figure out the what later. Or that's part of like the implementation team figures out the what and the how, but this is like the direction we're going in. And then we also talked that you call it speculative design, but it's human-centered design because like I said, we were emailing back and forth like, God, this is all so familiar because we use it in various industries for products or services. And I've used it in education too. And it really energizes people in a different way. And especially when you get very visual like that, because some people aren't good necessarily at expressing in words, but if you kind of like, yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking. I just didn't know how to say it. So I thought this was really, really well done.
And maybe too, this approach can carry on into the implementation phase. If we have some kind of interaction with people again, as we get into very specific things and finding sources of funds and, that kind of
There's
thing.
that, yeah. Exactly, because what came out of this session was what we call in human-centered design, the aspirational future states. You guys have heard me talking about that a lot. And so what people identify is like the gap between where we are today and that aspirational future state are these programs and ideas. And they gave us some very specific things as to what could fill those gaps. What you usually do, that Ken likes to do the voting, and that we usually do is all right, what, is it real? Can we do it? Is it worth it? Or in the case of a town, can we fund it? Like you said,
But that's for implementation,
Yeah.
Started.
more planning.
we'll try this one.
Yes.
Better. Exactly, that's for the implementation team to look at, but what we can do is take the best ideas and say, all right, here's where we are. We looked at the trends, we listened to the customer, which in this case are the residents. And through our own research, here's the things that we've identified that can possibly get us to achieve our vision with the internal and external forces upon the town. Now go figure out how we're gonna do this, implement.
Whoa, right. I think you got a sweet spot there. Yeah. Okay,
I could have used this when my kids were little.
yeah. All right, thank you. Dory, yes.
So what you two are saying,
Hold on, we got a mic.
I can be really loud, it's okay.
Ah,
Turn it off.
I've been talking.
So if we were to put more dreamer or pie in the sky actions into this, is it fair to use words like explore the possibility of, or are we still using words like implement, blah, blah, blah? Like, how do we phrase the beginning of our action to embrace? We don't know how it's gonna work yet, we're just talking about an idea that we're dreaming.
Well, one of the big comments like that, kept popping up over and over again in the chapter section, so station 2. And folks will notice this if they look at other chapters apart from their own, is people wanted specificity. There were critiques of just generic language that didn't seem active enough, language that didn't seem to like use verbs that were, actionable verbs, people actually crossed out consider in a bunch of the cards. They said, why is it consider? Do it. And I think the idea is that people think that they may not understand the exact process of how these things, like a bylaw, for instance, a bylaw just doesn't get passed. But I think the idea for them is that we would include a proposal for a bylaw to get passed. And obviously it then goes through all its various steps, through say planning board scenario, and then goes to town meeting. But I think people did want to see something more actionable. So that being said, I know that when Dave and I were editing our chapter earlier today, and kind of looking at some of this feedback, we chose much more active language. And then it was kind of on us to figure out how to build that action so that the necessary entities in town hall can consider it and make it come to fruition. Does that mean that it automatically does? No. But I think that's the whole idea. We're trying to propose that, and then it's up to implementation later on, but I don't know. if that's
and we
helpful.
do add in the parties
Exactly.
to do it
Relevant
that
parties.
we feel are involved, and also a time frame, whether it's immediate or short-term, long-term, that kind of thing.
So you're getting more at the what, like, here's what we should do, but the implementation team would do like the how. So the best
Right.
example I give for that when I'm explaining this at work is, say the what is, we need to go more digital. The how for the team to figure out, what does that mean? Does that mean web, social, AI, something? You don't get into that specific until you have a team really studying it and saying, is it real? Can we do it? Is it worth it? Can we fund it? So, but at least don't give them such generality, they don't know where to start. And it's interesting that we were kind of worried that it would seem too prescriptive, right?
Yeah,
Like,
we
do
were-
this, but they're saying, you guys have been at this for 2 years, we want to know what you recommend. But so if you at least get them to the what, and then it's enough of a guide for the next team to put together all of the details and see what can be funded.
Okay. Good. More information, and as Marissa said, if you can only look at your own chapter, that's useful, and take notes there. Which leads us to the next item, the work session. We do have time on the agenda. I'm thinking another half hour, like we did last week, for people who are here in teams. If you don't have a team member with you, I guess you'll have to talk to yourself, but Ken is not here tonight. I didn't know whether he would or not be, but anyway, I think it'd be worthwhile to take a half hour like we did last meeting and go over some of those items. I think most people have got the vision statement. We got some reported out the last meeting. We want to finish that off and then improve on the actions based on feedback. I've got some new information on housing that just came out like 2 days ago. And It's interesting discussion about connecting the Community Preservation Act funds and the housing part of it. And how to utilize those monies and so forth and so on. Anyway. So we would take time, Lisa, on the, online people. We just turn off the microphone and they can watch us walk around the room, sit with our team members. But, we turn off the, microphone, yeah. Okay.
So you stop the recording?
No, we can't. Okay.
Bert just took off.
He's already talking to himself in another room.
Oh, okay. He's left. So anyway, we are at about 20 of, so 8:10, 8:10, we'll come back together and we'll do a round of reports again. And that's where we will be.
Mr. Chairman, before
Yes.
we move on to this bullet point in the agenda, does the committee agree that it would be acceptable to put these results online on our website? The results of the event?
I think so, it's just like all the other focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Would
Yeah.
that be
I would,
permissible? We've done that with the survey and with Ken's.
Yeah. sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
will do. Thank you.
I guess John will take care of it, or how, oh, you
I
have
can
access.
switch it to the
Yeah,
website. Yeah, I'll put the PDF up. Thank you.
okay. So, and go at it if we have two members
Go
here.
there, am I going there?
I'll come to you.
Okay.
Ten after eight.
David,
Get back.
Who's David McWilliams?
First.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I just saw him wandering around the hallway.
He left.
Oh.
If he's out in
He
the
was sad.
and
But you can just say, explore and incentivize. First. Yeah, so let them. So don't go into the types of. As it just, I think these.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is, you know.
Yeah.
There's responders and. You know. Want us to be surveyed, wishy-washy. Yeah, but down there, you're not exploring. I think in that way, you know, you're waiting for.
myself.
Say, public service. you know, Public service. Yeah.
That's what I was doing for.
Yeah. Maybe.
Right.
Keep those.
And I don't know.
Yeah, because I was scanning through Marissa's and mixed with red mixed use, better town. But there was another one that somebody said I almost cheered, and they said it was startups, small business vendors.
Monday, June
Not
13th.
utilizing
I wanted to see when they're, you know, and then everyone's saying entertainment, arts, culture.
So there's a report.
Age specific as well as commentary.
And it's the second item.
In that website.
Speed or.
Asian population, younger population, but they don't want all.
Kind
of
of
it.
triggers as well.
Yeah, but you.
We're actually, one of our actions.
Seniors,
But then.
like teaching them how to
Question
cook
is,
healthy
thoughts?
or running their
What
errands.
happens with the money?
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Are they?
programs in other countries like that.
And I don't know.
Both.
Which
Here.
Have we recorded it? Or somebody? Anyway, there's still more.
That's a good, these are,
I was just talking about this, so editorial too, we
I
got.
did not read it.
It's crazy.
I think this is,
Well, not
really,
crazy,
it's about-
it's interesting, and it ties into some of the things we had already.
right out of the town hall, the old school. And all those old things there. How'd I do?
This is something that, but you did see the website, if you get on there, this website. You can take this, this is from the whole thing, you can see accessory dwelling kind of thing. But they were back then. Here, I didn't know whether. Nineties, I guess, we were calling it accessory apartments.
I think they all
But it
start
talks
coming
about
together.
Oh, you know.
I'm a big
how it
schooling
works,
guy, but some of the
what
stuff
it's
is
trying to
all,
accomplish.
like
I
if
don't
you
know
talk
there's
about that,
any
like even the
text you
picture
might
she had in her
Put in there.
today is,
And, let's see. I went through.
Or is this more like?
Some of it could be, but it's what it's trying to accomplish. We had it, where was it?
she had a picture, I know it was in the thing she presented tonight, maybe it wasn't.
Here, where is that? It's under strategy too.
So-
Picture you.
It's like the picture of like, it looked like downtown Chatham.
Remember we said.
Right here.
Adopt
Right.
two.
But it was more,
Adopt an accessory dwelling unit. in
you'll never
law.
make that look like that because,
So we
well,
may,
frankly, if you go
there
20
may
feet
be
behind
some
those houses here,
words,
there's even
words we could, add some
sidewalks, this became a little more. And it's residential, but there's nothing that is
Because
actually.
people in the past, well, what is,
So-
what is?
It easily could be
The in-law.
business.
What I'm seeing here
And
is
you can
that
have
they
mixed. It's the very definition of mixed.
are drawing up, like, what year is this from?
And, you know, you have the tree lines, preserve those. houses,
something like that.
dates back to the turn of last century. That's kind of, I don't want to get real specific with that. What I. noticed
They
from what
do
she said,
specify.
And I think what
owner
you're
occupancy.
identifying some here is,
And I wonder
there's a
if
very,
we could
very
put
much a
that
lack of
language so that
specificity.
you're not adding-
It's a lot of, yeah, but there needs to, you know, maybe there should be like bullet points either throughout or at the end, like ideas.
And this one here, see, they're talking about.
Like said, the big effort to preserve the structures out here, maybe through the designate, and then any time back, maybe they get designated as historic structures into the south, maybe they're not eligible for federal registry. But they could be in a historic district downtown or district or whatever.
Which we did a little too,
That's
because
the
what
kind of
she
thing you can add
said
in.
was the original one, where we specified it back to all ages.
Yeah.
But here, new adopted accessory dwelling unit,
downtown,
in-law
we got
zoning
that covered in
bylaw
one
for
section.
owner occupied
no
dwelling.
trees downtown, we got
We're
that.
staying in those.
Black signs, we got that in 1.7. Signage is clear and consistent. with
See what it does
the
is it will add
town
inexpensive rental to the housing stock.
Yes. I laughed because we at one time did have, we called it the pretty committee.
Well,
It was
okay.
a downtown
So we're saying
beautification,
owner-
and the chairperson of said committee, I think in this book.
Okay, you love it. Got it.
So the
So-
primary house,
I am.
live there.
Right.
Hey, Ron,
To College student.
who was the chair of the pretty committee?
But that's for someone that they could decide.
It's either me or Lori or.
It was you, I'm just joking.
Short-term rental? That's not.
There's some success.
I don't.
When they were.
I did the now.
Very good. Okay, so we
Yeah,
added
there
some
was-
stuff.
They were gonna, they wanted.
And I added some.
They put
bench
it
work.
in lots, so no trash under their bushes.
And bushes on.
His parking lot is full every weekend. He's not- he's got his bushes down.
Is that the building inspector too?
Whereas A, the state didn't fund it. B,
Primarily board.
the business owners along College Highway just
I mean.
fund it.
Right,
Or even if you gave it to them, they probably.
right.
So you put a
So
bench
that captures.
and a trash.
that
bin.
lot. And,
And who's gonna take care of the tree? And blah, blah.
Well, they
It's,
didn't want trees.
it's a much, it's very simple in a picture when you go to. But
Because we didn't get the underground
Implementation.
houses, right? That
she was, they had a whole committee about it, it was downtown down center study.
Yeah, they didn't want any power lines, they didn't want anything underground. It was like,
That was a crazy amount of dough too.
oh my gosh.
There was, I think, about 9 or 10 million to bury the power lines from mobile to the center. And that's not include the connections, because everyone would have to obviously redo their.
Yeah,
It was 9 or 10 million block. To bury
So
the
that's-
power lines, all the utilities.
You gotta put some nice sizes on.
Well, it was that kind of idea, though.
So much.
Kind of like,
I mean, I don't think that's bad.
That's,
you know,
Fairly active.
it'd be great.
Um,
Big power.
Score increased in something.
And you really drive it down through the center and
You know more about.
it's the first thing you see, especially with the ride line. By somebody, they take the-
Uh-huh.
Saying much.
But that directs
like somehow south of there. Literally lower their.
do we change
that to the increased
density?
Have a big, like the retaining, wall, take the highway down to 30 feet or so. Like that. I don't know how you would get into summer house, but you know what I mean?
Yep.
Plausible? Sure.
yeah,
Possible? Anyway,
all right. This one.
I thought this one was-
Positions are created. That us?
oh, I think that's cool, but I think you have to have.
I mean, the support for the.
This-
Oh, it
this
was the,
support starts to get a little bit more.
HCD or whatever, Department of Housing.
There was like a guy, like, you call me and I get your.
Or something similar.
Yeah.
Oh, here's, you could just have it.
Here's like
I mean, could you have something here?
Or you
Have you would say it's down, some here it is. Right, who can we, I guess it's not growing. A nonprofit that wanted to run it, free. Use this space. This is a beautiful space. Very underneath.
Do we want to say this whole phrase?
And this is a beautiful
Smart growth zoning district, they renovated.
We've always talked about just smart, they come to us after.
I mean,
It's really is a general.
well, it's smart growth and startup zoning districts.
What it.
Oh,
It's everything else. It was a sound decision to renovate instead of just not.
Well, of course, it makes you, such a district.
Yeah. There's some meetings, art show once a year. And they do something here.
Chapter 40Q.
I don't know what 42 is.
Okay, they'll figure it out.
All right, so we'll add something to that.
I don't know what.
Okay.
Are you fine?
Dixie's Craft.
It's already allowed.
Yeah, so he's from the Mass Department of Housing and Community Development, so I guess technically he could include.
Sorry, put that, yeah.
I mean, I'll technically do math, so we know it's the state. He's been doing it for almost 26.
So going back to the strategy, are you gonna type that in?
I just have this and I'll.
Okay.
I had like.
Going back to the strategy itself.
Yeah.
This word.
Places of street, art wall,
I
figures.
would just.
That's a good idea.
All ages, of households.
We have to.
We have a place.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't have.
We're already done. Most of the kids do it. Nice.
That's what we're doing. You can use configuration.
The rail trail.
To play up the.
Under the culvert.
Generational housing.
Middle of the south. Yeah, but no, it's a good idea. Westfield, there's something there. Westfield has some. Legit ones.
Yeah, okay.
What is that? Is that Wall Street? Yeah. In Westfield? You go.
Does that get, oh yeah, it does. Yeah.
And then left is the senior housing there.
Yeah.
The next left, I think is Ross. And then take the first left.
I did see
Follow
other,
on to the
like,
trustees
someone was
group on the
asking,
railroad track.
don't just educate, but
And it's, I think it's the rail trail goes across it now.
yeah, so that was good that we
A
got
lot,
that
and
in
it's
there.
been beautifully, I'm not getting beautifully painted, like some nurse healthcare thing. It's really neat.
So it's true.
Having accessible indoor space.
Someone was
We
asking
have
about
that.
this.
I know we're having these too.
So I think we actually spoke to that, because we were talking about.
Yeah, they think about, well, they don't see
Right.
these specific.
Oh, yeah, and that's also an accessible
I think we
station.
addressed that by doing more specific.
Did we touch on
This space would be way better.
is comments about that?
So, we have two here we wanna
Consider.
we should add something. Then I went
I mean, an
through
ADU accessory dwelling, unit, that's fine.
the historic section
Could be.
for
I don't think.
two. And this one's we have
Oh, no way. Although my brother did this rim. I get, well. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do anything but.
Oh.
My child.
No, I mean, it's so much fun. That's
So
Something
yeah,
like
the comments were about, so they
like the.
targeted action,
Vacation and.
someone wanted set up. housing
I was just, this look, it'd be first, look at me, this like chat, but yeah, it probably is.
I mean, that's pretty specific.
That feels a lot like this though, so
Or down a
the
bunch of
people
boats.
doing educational assistance program, obviously, 2, 3.
Looks just like this.
If they're gonna have an assistance
That was
program,
all
they
the
need to
other
also.
options that was in there.
But
So you please do it.
This one has to be like the shop. I don't know if it is, but it sure looks like it.
Well, I didn't do anything
On
on
a house and office section where.
I
Or added.
did add some.
Where's the staff?
I saw that.
Or you did,
So right now, we put that on select.
contrary
Is
to
anyone like
what the discussion was
down
earlier,
supporting them?
I think there's some that we can put some dates on.
And the town clerk is really supportive of that. Would you think that? they'll support that?
Should I do?
Should I agree?
Anyway, it's whoever would put on there, if we could ask somebody to put on.
Well, we're talking, the goal is to
Send it to you, you got
establish, so the select, we're going to establish that someone needs to help.
Over the number of times.
Thanks.
Not that.
The only changes I made.
See, and we can't put chief administrative officer because the actual select board manages that person, so. The select board.
So they're just gonna have-
Who they wanna. So, I don't know how sensitive people 2-4, you got a specific, additional traffic. In your house. I mean, I think the way the trend in population is going, that's, they're gonna need.
Yeah.
a senior housing. And I don't know if the lead party is. I guess it's the house.
Gotcha.
Now, I added that.
Then was that-
Complete protection. It's okay. Then I
Support, am I in the right place?
added you one.
So that.
Oh, this was the
one.
Not only aging, but lower income handicap.
Yeah.
So maybe we just take out the word statement, we just need identify location for additional.
Yeah, I think that.
At the end, should we write supporting seniors, low income handicap?
See project approval.
Yeah, for seniors, low income residents. and
Goals,
handicap
objectives.
residents.
Got it.
Okay.
So that we're sure we touch those.
So we'll go
I mean,
off
it's
the
not
same
Okay,
day.
now it's coming out. Okay, because like the awareness goes back right over at town historical. The point, you can say that here. Do you think we should add that for each one? Like the targets?
Well, some of them, no, some of them, yes.
Yeah, but that's kind of.
It's
pretty much required.
And I only did it on 3 or 4.
So I think taking that out. They can see that.
And 1, 2 was recommended in
That's not, yeah, because there's
the
a.
document, reverse the order of resources and inventory.
Yeah, I don't think they would.
But then I haven't completely resolved this plan by the year from
Definition. Because
included in the plan will be timeline schedule with dates to implement.
Hmm?
I think that's the.
Right.
Yeah, programs are all.
Point three, the cultural.
Yes. So do you think they can have all those, when is the master plan published?
Right,
And they're doing that.
well, depends
I
when.
still want to make it fun, like put back in some sort of incentivized for civil servants and teachers that want to work in town and live in town. I think that's part of what will help.
I think the historical commission, historical society should support this.
That's the strategy too, where all the need is. And so I was asking Corey issues that don't get specifically show up. Tax incentives, timelines, not just incentivize.
Put it on support parties.
or
Yeah,
develop
establish short, medium, and long-term goals.
and state out.
Not a lot of McDonald's.
Which category?
Everything else is.
And there, did you write it?
Yep. You're there. Okay, I was just kind of.
Because we have like ensure that households who want to move to town have options that are affordable to them. And we've always talked about how our Southwick police can't even afford to live here, even though they want to.
It doesn't matter.
And then there was also the.
Well, we don't have it anymore. That was like a really big thing that we took.
Cultural.
Oh,
Took it out. Because we went more specific with like targeted, that's. So between. So.
Take any money.
Quick fix on 2 Use.
Define Southwick community and cultural center.
Monitor the.
Impact impact. Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, maybe that would expand.
Now, the mapping they can get done by,
I think our 2 also helps with talking.
maybe
about
not
how
find.
And then get different areas in the with the non-residents.
Maybe find a new building.
Yeah, you got, I mean, you got some good goals.
Or maybe it's an old barn or something.
Under 2.7, just a quick one. I had add building inspector support. Part of that.
So let's say.
And here's where do we not go so far? Do we say permanent alternate home design,
Makes sense.
allow permitting of alternate home designs?
Yeah.
That's for someone to explore.
Fine.
It's easy.
Would be cool. Allow permitting of alternate home designs.
So then it really is the same. The building inspector.
No, support. Support part of it.
No.
One second, one minute.
Okay.
I won't sign. Anyways, I didn't. Rely on.
Is I think 1.4 is
Designing, he's going to building inspector. would
And it goes hand in hand with 1.5.
Code.
So then do you want the
By the way, there's no way.
involved in?
Okay.
Yeah.
The tiny homes may not have septic.
The,
systems.
I think that if you look at the area, we have. They have a design guide the deck. It's part of it. But they haven't, but it needs to be improved and actually. Cause it kind of defines like what comes out in the master plan, kind of a little bit.
Strategy one.
And it gives ideas and.
I think we're just missing a word.
Strategy one,
Follow. As they
I
develop,
think you should start out.
it isn't always followed,
Provide.
because it's more of a, it's a, just like.
And I didn't say-
Guidelines and a review process, it doesn't have the force of law, but it's an accepted policy of the
I would just.
planning board, but it certainly, and it should probably be led by them. With support from the historical commission.
Is that stronger than adequate?
But, and then codify it. Because if you really want to do that, sometimes you have it like in a downtown, you can have an overlay district that says, okay, this is gonna be a downtown district, and
I didn't have.
there's certain rules that happen. We have it in for certain things already, signs.
Change that.
If you're saying you want to preserve, and just throw it out, preserve this area here and have a certain style of building through the absolute, what today is the center of town. That's how you would do it. You could codify it and say, it must look like this, or has to have this kind of style element or whatever.
So we take the blue off of it. They're saying three party needs to be.
I would, and then I would make it.
They did research it.
Is this becoming the housing production plan, or that's an entirely different?
Kind of different thing, I believe, in my mind.
Are we looking
It should
at
be
that?
much. Yeah. And Mr. Padilla.
Yeah, I don't think it's kind of.
Oh, no, that was.
You texted me at planning board meeting.
At the 17th workshop, someone put in, affordable should be changed to financially accessible for all income levels. Have we sanitized affordable out of our?
I think we did, except when we meant the actual affordable.
Strategy three.
It's yeah, where we said financially attainable, same difference, contracted. So attainable, accessible, that don't feel like.
So we took care of it. And now let's go to strategy three, which I think.
Yeah, we can.
Let's study this.
You want me to send this to you?
This little editorial, and then I only printed out just a couple of pieces of the report.
How's that?
This sounds like developers. Developers
I know those like what we're making.
set up a study. There's this group that Tufts University to look at where housing money has been used.
Yes, we want to talk about it.
Basically, most of the world sometimes it's sitting on
The best of them.
and what happens is here, they found that over 80% of the CPA spending in Cambridge has gone to housing. Now, I don't know what that means, whether they have built some roads and houses. By far the highest level in the state, nearby Boston, Chelsea. Meanwhile, the typical municipality devotes only 14% of their residential spending for housing.
No, you can get it worried.
10% and then
Municipal.
70%, well, there's some for administration, but what's that one's in general, thanks, general fund. But some communities, and we actually have it. have this house. They talk, this group that evaluated all of this housing. Evaluated. Right,
I think we do need to bring to that too, because people were asking here, private.
yeah. So I think the only, on strategy 3, increase affordable housing and make progress towards da 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 da. 10, go 10% or something. Not relevant. So in this report, there's a map of the city, and they have little dots all over the seven. If you click on the dot, and it shows the town. And it shows just a couple bullets as to how much percentage wise, and I think dollar wise. Anyway, I mean, it's, yeah, it's pretty. So anyway, I think that's good, and then for the specifics. This may be application based on some of this, establish a housing.
And here's where we want to.
The one area is down.
Yeah. All of us, I'd say small.
It'd be interesting. Well, we should have kind of have a discussion about
Public.
status policy and zoning, yeah, because you have to go in front of town meeting.
And then we've got to say, I think we've got to say, to receive community preservation act funds.
Over there, ready to go.
And then we've got to say to something.
Now,
We've got to look maybe
on
on
the same subject, you brought up the note about accessory apartment.
I think.
Yeah, because I-
South, that's the real, that's the case. Like, the depot.
I know this, but if I remember, it's like, this is a great idea, we really do need an accessory apartment thing. A, it's not even all historical. B, what's it doing here?
CPA.
It just didn't be right.
No.
Accessory use is fine.
Yeah.
Be there. I think I just called it out and said.
And that's why I put here,
Accessory part is.
instead of a
But I-
lead part,
Part of the reuse.
yes.
When
Instead of the
people
lead
are-
part, C, should write it out here, community preservation.
Live wrong.
But I need to take some time to look at these towns. To figure out.
What is convey real? I would.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't think it should be there.
So should we just say to purchase and keep up?
To purchase and maintain.
Really?
No, I don't know. We still have to complete the law.
Yeah.
See, this is
Coming up to,
housing trust money is just sitting in municipal bank accounts. And nearly 100 cities and towns have now put dollars into housing trusts.
Is it current interest?
Yeah, rather than have it just sit. But this group
But I really like how they get
contracted to have a study
society and the committee.
is pushing on.
Because I don't even know,
So
I mean, I
when
know.
you say
people
establish
that are on
public housing trust
society. That are not.
receive Community Preservation Act funds to manage housing projects,
Corporate commission, that is.
public housing projects, because this is all.
Well, like the society.
Low income
owns
housing
the-
projects.
And.
Because we're talking about capital A affordable.
They own it.
Yeah, and see, I don't know if the CPA dollars could be used on the fire.
They work together, but this, there isn't a lot of overlap. Like, it's like there's not a person on.
I mean, I only copied a couple of sections.
What?
How it is.
But can you use CPA funds to buy private property?
To make it.
Well, that's just what.
there's that 2 years.
And I just read that chapter.
You didn't send it to me.
Establish beautification.
What's the understanding?
It's a great idea. Should make Ross the chair of it again.
It's interesting that we don't think that this is these are developers.
Are you reading
That's
Voting
what's in
costs for everything.
System, you know, of less values. You know, what is it?
We talked about it.
Oh, here.
Mostly you. But we're having a
The
good.
bylaw queen.
Says there's.
No, I never said that in one word once, not even. I did say, might have said that.
Other South of this spent most of our money on,
It was really great.
Land preservation.
Districts.
which takes that land away from. Needs to be developed for housing. Private housing.
Yeah.
So.
District or
I don't know,
district, yeah.
Depending on what
Mhm.
Diane sent you. You can read, I don't know if you want to put it public or just keep it.
I wonder if we honestly just go and establish a public housing trust fund to receive and manage.
I don't think we have to say it's out there.
Because we're within the public housing.
But,
They, we don't need to tell them how to
is it the
manage,
best if we did want to?
receive and manage.
She has.
Should we add something? Okay, it's not here, because this is just a goal. Maybe it's in the, there's a section 1.1.
So they can be used for acquire, create, preserve, and support.
I mean, it's not has to define what those are.
They can rehab.
So we
affordable
can
housing.
provide some, like we were just talking about this space out here, I mean, coming out of what we're thinking. I always thought these were.
I mean, it should be.
Not my opinion. And frankly, from the. To. They took the. North
You
of
know,
Rome.
what you had written up, and I was just looking at.
My opinion,
The consistency, we'll see how we're doing,
but
town.
Sometimes it's broken 50, 60, 70, and then if you knock it down and.
But then I would definitely, these are some suggestions.
It's fun to change, but it is our set, but it is what it is. But we're not going to knock it
We've
down.
got,
Say,
like,
okay.
finance committee, so. Or somebody else had finance. Oh, you're. But anyway. Oh,
In our.
And you'd have no outcry, you could have an outcry about it. And, you know,
I would just build upon existing
but again, the zoning permits it,
recreation.
and unless you preserve them by either design, and even the
That's
design.
not, that's not what it meant at all. It's really spoke to California. You're Southwick, Mass. Yes, so that's where the motor process. So recreational community is not a brand.
It was done to look at.
Technical describing town.
I don't know why they changed the site of this. Before my time.
I was on that.
Utilize.
I was on that committee that did that sign.
It's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did it to look kind of capish, but
What does that
my point
mean?
is that.
Right, Agawam
You could
could be
do
recreational.
whatever, like.
They have a water.
Well, maybe we have to reward additional.
Well, it's just, it says, for example.
Yeah.
So that's where brand is all about, when people don't know anything about you other than one thing. What is the one thing, not in this area?
So I think.
That they, this is like saying, breakfast cereal instead of Cheerios. That's what, that's the brand.
Then we maybe should get more specific and it's called the WIC. Actually. I believe now, people that operate it. I could say more across, yeah.
Yeah, because the brand is really, this could change, but we're known for this, because it's on national television.
Yes, Saturday.
Stay away. My children are 29 and 31. They
Oh.
down here.
Okay.
They're an example of kids who left, went to college and found better jobs.
Did they get, when they came back or? did they
No,
come back?
one lives in Greater Worcester, and the other one lives down in the south. Coast. Right on.
So in the acknowledgements, I took.
I
out-
added that.
I took out that piece and I was thinking, you mentioned.
Okay,
Leave it.
even though you also, you mentioned it up here.
No, I took it out.
Oh, okay.
I deleted it. In the last iteration.
Yeah, I literally just copied it into this.
So you can add, that paragraph.
Yeah.
If there's anything to.
I kept your first version, so.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Oh, my goodness, quarter after. Okay, the only thing I wanted to do here left was under 3.3, should in kind of like.
Bless it, bless you.
Support part.
They alerted to Marcus.
What?
Is
I have no cologne.
that them or is that the
3-3.
same Department of Housing and Community Development?
Apply for. Well, they usually help us. They usually help us do these grants. CDBG.
You calling everybody back in, Mr. Chairman? Yeah, I just started, I may might want to use a bulleted list for that, like, where would the historic districts be? I just put one in there.
So it's over here, we're,
Green Mass Department.
over here, we're creating the housing trust fund, we can, the housing trust fund. To support. everything.
Which would be then the CPC, Community Preservation. Call back to, hey.
I'm just sitting in the.
Hey, you gotta keep it under 50 captions. Come on, you gotta. Come on.
Section 2.
It's talking about native plant species in the lake.
2.2 and 2.3. They appear to be the same.
Yeah,
You brought that up.
Yeah, we got planning, we're busy.
Norm agrees. 2.3.
Well, it's interesting. Lee
Okay. Well, they say within 15 years.
Yeah, I think it's like that. It's fun. It's the same thing, by the way. This
Trust fund needs to be a strategy.
No, it's talking about racing now, which.
But if she's talking about how she can do this.
Cause I added civic.
Be the recruit, and it's just the whole.
Job 5 weeks.
Figure it out.
Or coming out of the
Well,
data is,
finally,
it has been done
and studying.
Yeah.
But we're pretty close.
And I don't know if you've ever seen the ones, the stories of. There's an old VCR. They're on YouTube channels. You know, every single person on the tape. I don't know when they're record is. I'd like to preserve.
Totally. Yeah. You gotta pick your hill.
You know.
Just. But it's in Chicago.
No, I never. What's too many hands in the pot.
You what?
Yes.
It's on
Okay, welcome back. Right. We are back to the agenda for the meeting. We've had our work session. And hopefully things were improved as to the chapters. And the next part of the agenda is the report from the work session teams. I know we had some reports last time. Some people didn't get material ahead of time soon enough to look it over. So we'll go through the chapters again, but I'd like to ask the land use folks to, give us kind of theirs. Where they are with their, activities and, in case we don't have enough time to get through everything, but, it looks like Mr. Spina is
I
going
can
to,
certainly,
Did all the segment.
oh,
yes, Roz did all
Ross did all the recording and you were doing all this.
not necessarily, but she was my handwriting. is here.
It's worse, so.
So one of the things we did do is we now have a vision statement that we sent off to John to send to whomever's going to normalize it, I'll call it, with everybody else's, the way they're written.
Yeah.
So that's out there. Otherwise, we've gone through the chapter, made a bunch of edits. Change, updated the strategies, the actions and whatnot. Just read through, and we spent the workshop going through the comments from the workshop. I'd say we're generally speaking in line with a lot of the comments that were made already, so.
So you commented on Ken's,
Yes.
materials?
Okay, there's now 2 copies kicking around, one with a track changes, so you can see everything changed, and a final clean, I'll call it copy. There's a few tweaks we want to make as a result.
Chart. we didn't know how to do.
Yeah, there's a couple,
Get
there's
rid
some
of.
instruction, there's a chart that we
Yeah.
think should be.
That he is, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, for, strategies and actions,
Mhm.
under the strategies, what are you looking at?
We
How
kept
many?
the 2
strategies?
2 strategies, and I'd see.
2 strategies?
2 strategies.
Okay.
To start, which is what we had to start with, so we
Yeah.
didn't change that.
Who
And up
created
for-
that? Is that Ken?
Ken would have created the strategies.
There are,
And you were certainly able to add something if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And particularly under those 2 strategies to have your actions that you based on your, Now-
actually, we have a total of 6 actions under the 2 strategies.
okay. Very good. Let's see. Any comments? They're good with them,
They
Making
okay reading their vision?
good progress.
Curious,
Oh,
they
you
came
want
up
to-
with.
Oh, we want to hear the vision
A vision
for a land.
Absolutely. Anyway, the long distance here.
Your art.
Now I'm good. Not gonna take classes, so-
I'm gonna hold it back up here.
Southwick will be a diverse land use community with a balance of residential, business, industrial, agricultural, and recreational uses through zoning that aligns with its traditional New England heritage.
My note on that one was, sounds like today. You could literally say that for the most part today. So what I'm gonna do is wait to see your
Yeah.
chapter, and I'm sure there's great, like, next generation type stuff in there, and just tweak a word or 2.
Yep, right.
But I would say if you can hang that shingle at any time, in any place, then it's not quite a vision. But it's got good bones for a vision, but it's a little too,
Aesthetical.
yeah, exactly. And maybe status quo is our vision, I don't know,
Yes.
but
Diversity, that's why we said diversity in there, because there could be more creative stuff,
yeah, get a little more specific.
Yeah.
Not to have you read everything, can you just read your 2 strategies?
Yep.
But not the action.
Yep. We tweak some words.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
Can you just project for Mr. Hanson?
Oh, yeah, yep. Strategy number 1, maintain and create opportunity for development within the context of the town's distinctive New England heritage. Strategy number 2, enhance the town center as a livable, workable, walkable, and accessible neighborhood.
Is there other strategies that?
Were those
More or less.
Were
given.
those Ken's?
I tweaked some words a little bit, but generally speaking, those
Yeah,
are the ones. that we
Even
did.
now, like there was some stuff in here about accessibility, so we
Yeah.
tried to add that into that one strategy. Cause it's true downtown, like without the sidewalks and, not sidewalks, crosswalks, stuff like that, yeah.
So there may be an action item under there, put a crosswalk in.
Right, which quite honestly, some of that is difficult because of the fact that the state already put the curb in, so it's kind of hard to do the whole accessibility thing, but, you know, that's up to the state, that's not to us.
Right,
That's a state highway.
but we can try, we can aspire,
Right,
we
yeah.
can aspire. Okay, we should move on, next one, I thought maybe would, share. This is not pre-planned, so surprise, surprise, folks. Climate change, is there one on climate change?
Yeah, Burris.
Oh,
I'm here. Jessica Parker couldn't be here because of a last minute work meeting. But we have been communicating about this. We do have a vision statement, which is Southwick town officials and staff, boards and commissions, businesses and citizens are focused on climate change and efforts to improve sustainability. We take a proactive and planned approach to energy saving, cost saving, and comfort improving projects. We are dedicated to being good stewards of our natural and agricultural resources, thoughtful managers of our businesses and economy, and effective providers of cultural and social activities for our citizens and visitors. That's where we are with that. That's a lot of words, but
yeah, okay, well, appreciate the, work on that, and it may get edited down a wee bit.
yeah,
If it kind of overlaps with some things that other chapters have taken
Right.
on.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, just for one example, about being effective providers of cultural and social activities. Well, would that be climate change or sustainability? But if you think of, say, restaurants have a huge carbon footprint. So that's why I left in, social activities.
Okay, we'll have to see how that all shakes out.
There's a cultural section.
Yeah, there is,
Right.
facilities and services, I think, was taking in some of that. Public
Where-
service and
There was
facilities.
a dovetail to your point in that someone made the comment that restaurants in town, if they had some support in terms of just biodegradable materials, that could be a thing to work with, in terms of local businesses and just getting like their
Right.
materials up to specs with, climate change and sustainability goals. So I think you're touching on something important there for sure.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll look at that more closely. I have a couple of, not to take up too much time, but a couple of general comments. In this chapter, it seemed like it was more of a report than an action. There were something like 9 pages of narrative and then 4 pages of action steps. And I'm wondering if anybody else had the same feeling about their chapter. And if we might consider, it would be a lot of work, but might consider, alternating the current state and then the actions, and then the current state and then the actions. Not sure. And then the other general comment, there's something in our chapter about the opportunities presented by changes. We're it's kind of all about protecting businesses and residents from climate change and the dire things that can happen, but there are going to be opportunities, I think, too, and we should focus on those as well.
Okay. The third one I would ask to say something would be the economic development. Scott is here.
That would be me. So I have not hooked up with my partner yet, and I've taken a swag at our vision statement. And I'd like to first say thank you, Mr. Chairman, Randy, John Goddard, wherever you are, because he answered my phone when I called him. I'm just looking for some guidance, and I got some great support from you guys. Just want to say thank you. So we'll start off with a vision statement. I've got a long and a short. They could go together. I will read them to you. Southwick residents can dine, shop, seek services within the town for most of their needs. Town has a quaint, pedestrian-friendly downtown with diverse shops and services offered. Agricultural businesses thrive from local support of their goods and services. Southwick has a healthy mix of businesses, allowing employment opportunities for all levels of the workforce. The business community is valued and engaged by local government to support and encourage growth and stability in town. The long version. Short version, Southwick has a healthy, stable, active, and supported business community that complements the unique characteristics. So I am not sure.
But
which
I
one.
think the long one just seems to be more towards future thinking. The short one sounds like it could be now.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think if you can shorten the more specifics to like a paragraph, and then build the rest of that into your strategy, that's.
Sure.
Like the land chapter one, I just changed the second half of the sentence, I kept the first half and took out some specifics.
Right.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your outreach and efforts to keep it moving forward.
Thank you.
Let's see. Transportation and mobility. I know last time you had a vision statement, Randy.
We did.
Have you gotten into any strategies and actions?
Yes, we did. So John and I have both reviewed the documents. We haven't had a chance to meet together and kind of compare notes, but I do have his notes and I looked at them today. I can read our vision statement, just to refresh everyone's memory and, you know, look for some feedback. Our vision for transportation and mobility is to promote easy and safe connectivity between its residential communities and many attractions, providing for the protection and enhancement to the quality of life for people to live, work, and visit Southwick. And then there are a couple of strategies that.
Yeah, maybe just the number you have.
There were two strategies that,
Two
that
strategies.
Ken came up with, and I think there were maybe 7 or 8 actions. I'll read the two strategies. Continue to provide and invest in a complete and well-maintained safe system of roads and sidewalks. That was strategy 1. And then number 2 is create safe and improved non-motorized transportation opportunities and provide additional transit options within Southwick. So we do have some things to work in, some of the I guess goals, some of the call actions.
How specific? Give me an example of an action. Maybe see how.
So one action is to become a complete street community in order to access the benefits of the program. Another is to identify opportunities to add access points to the Southwick Rail Trail at potential locations on some roads.
Okay, there's a flavor there. Specificity.
Your idea to kind of be halfway between, like, theirs is only a line long, ours is only, you know.
I think we said like
And then-
try to keep it to like a short paragraph, which is what we saw in other towns. And the other thing to think about, like vision is, and I'm thinking about that little girl with the blocks. I used to work at Lego, so we used to actually do that to create strategy, we used to build with bricks. But think if you can actually literally close your eyes as you're listening to someone read a vision and picture it. Once you start getting into the whys and hows, you're sliding out of vision territory. So like I said, I only slightly, yours was the only, yours is the only one I received in advance, so I actually had it in writing. Is like, you talk about the different diverse land with residential business, industrial, et cetera, through zoning. Zoning's getting into the why and the how. When someone's like trying to see, do I want to live, work, and play here? You know, oh, that town sounds great. They don't care about the zoning until.
That's how land use happens.
But that's not, that's how, exactly, how land use happens. So you get that goes into your chapter, not your vision. It's important.
Yeah.
But in terms of like being aspirational,
Okay.
it's too specific.
Yeah.
And I picked up on the town center. that you, when you're reading your strategies, and what's nice is it's also a red thread to that vision, right? So these aren't disparate chapters, right? It's all gotta come together. And so this was just what, like anchored by a revitalized town center that still honors the classic New England, and I was playing with heritage atmosphere, whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's different, like, that's not what we have now, right? And I've been to these towns and they're beautiful, the way they've done the sort of the classic New England center, where that's both drivable and walkable. So it's just, yeah, just like you're starting in, slipping into the why and how, that goes into your chapter, not your vision. It's important, but it's sort of like, why do I want to visit here? Why do I want to read this chapter, right? I want to see how they're gonna do that.
I wonder if some of his vision should be actually fit. This was too long, right? You were, wondering some of that is.
Yeah.
Our.
Maybe
Vision, you know,
compare
what
it
kind of
to it.
makes
Alita's
it-
not here, but one of the things we were gonna do is kind of wait till we had them all.
Mhm.
And then see, all right, how can we make it, the goal is one voice.
Right.
And so the red thread is encouraging.
Yeah.
And then we'll sort of look and say, all right, and it's okay to repeat certain elements because that means it's really important. I almost said wicked important. That means it's really important. So yeah, I'm encouraged. Like I said, I just sort of tweaked the very end. I didn't touch the first part of the sentence because I wanted to bring in what's different, and that's that town center, which we also heard about over and over again in all the different focus groups. It's good that people want that. It means it's that they're thinking about how they want to stay.
Yeah, and we were thinking, like Doug and I were saying, we think about it a long time, but some of it is hard to implement because they are privately owned businesses.
Private and a state,
And state owned
controlled
road,
road.
so you really don't have a lot of leeway there, you know, it's almost completely developed. There's very little in the town center that's not already developed, I don't think there's any, but there's one lot up by IBS, which isn't even been there, but been there 32 years, it's been for sale, you know, so I mean, that's the tough part, is you've got business owners here who, you know, when we came up with all kinds of ideas about when the state was coming in, you know, it was like, they don't want to maintain it, it's on their property, and they don't want garbage cans and benches and all that stuff, again, we got resistance, well, I guess is the best way.
Yeah, well, I mean, as generations change, or as the population ages and the younger generations leaving, if they want to bring in, keep having customers, then, you know, it's different. I mean, that's up to the implementation committee to figure out or not, right?
I also think, and the theme that's come up a couple times, I'll just bring it up one more time for good measure, is the previous iteration of the master plan that wasn't adopted had some pretty strong concepts in there that weren't overly realistic on the implementation side. And I think that's part of it was, oh, we're just gonna put the town center across from the schools, we'll call it a day. And I don't think that was a workable. And to what Marissa said, and by the way, that was an excellent example, it really helped me. That was like at the top end of plausible and not really in the possible, but now 25, 30 years on, if you take a look at the town center, so Norm and I spent a lot of time tonight talking south of the center, but north of Depot to Chabeli's on the west side, those buildings were built in the 40s and the 50s and 60s, and they're nearing or approaching the end of potentially the near of their useful life, right, in accounting terms. So future plan or future think is to put in place strategy of how that would be redeveloped without coming in and dozing it for the guy, but or person that owns it, but then you can do something for how you might want to see that look in 2040 or even slightly past that. But that's where to me, that's how this comes to play, and how, you know, I've said, the point I want to make is, as we come up with the master plan, it has to be possible, not just plausible. So I really like it, put it in my favorite, I really do.
Yeah.
So it really does help, you know, I think it's gonna be very beneficial to do that. And, you know, we were joking about this a little tonight, we had a beautification committee, and it's one of the recommendations in our chapter is, we had one before. And it was, the adversity was unbelievable when you thought that the idea was great, but the actual, I would have thought it would be likely, let alone possible. And then you go to implement it and you run up against the state and property owners along where you wanted to put it, or you're gonna put these assets on people's property for them, that they didn't want to.
It's
And
interesting that the
interesting.
state requires some of these things, so it's like, okay, state, you want us to do this. Now, help us figure out how to
Right.
do it, don't get in our
Well,
way.
that state highway was 35 years in that, like,
There was benches and
Oh,
stuff, but
much.
they put a lot of the improvements on private property adjacent to the state property, because they don't want to maintain it either. Once they're done, they want to get out of town and be done. So they don't want to own benches and trash barrels and bike racks and et
Neither do
cetera.
we.
We had a young man come in front of us, like in one of the first meetings, talking about bike racks and stuff, and it should be, you know, mobility should be part of this plan, and the implementation is gonna take a public-private partnership in order to get it done. And it has to be appealing for everyone to make it worthwhile.
Well, that will be interesting as we try to sell the master plan to the public. It's like, okay, everybody, this is what you wanted, but it's gonna take some creative thinking, some give and take, some help with the state.
Correct.
I mean, I don't even know how far we want to go. I'm sure you've all been to some towns where even national chains, I've seen CVS's that don't look like white buildings with
Sure.
red signs. They look
Sure.
like whatever the flavor of the town is.
And you can get there, if that's what you want, you can get there, and Norm and I were talking about this just tonight. The Dunkin' Donuts at the center looks like it belongs in Chatham, not Southwood. That was, I don't know how that happens before my time, but the stuff I had seen from planning was they tried to make it look New Englandy, but built a Cape style structure in the center of downtown Southwood. I've seen other Dunkin' Donuts that would fit more in
Yeah.
you know, eastern Massachusetts town rather than down the Cape, or, you know, a Massachusetts town, but certainly, you know, plausible. Thank you.
Okay, we need to move along. Open space, natural resources.
What do you want to know?
Your vision statement and how many strategies?
Southwick has natural resources in the form of plentiful water resources, wetlands, forests, agricultural lands, wildlife habitats, and soil diversity that are celebrated, actively used, and well protected, creating a healthy and sustainable community where residents can easily access the beauty and recreational opportunities that come from the preservation of our natural heritage.
at the beginning of that it was Southwick is, right? So we're supposed to,
Supposed to write it as if it's 2040.
oh, okay.
That Southwick has natural resources in the form of all those. And wetlands.
Is that how it started? Southwick has?
Southwick has natural
Yeah.
resources in the form of plentiful water resources, yada, yada, that are celebrated, actively used, and well protected. Creating a healthy and sustainable community where residents can easily access the beauty and recreational opportunities that come from the preservation of our natural heritage.
And how many strategies? Two or
No,
three?
actually, we have,
One has a break to working.
there's two strategies, but based on our conversation earlier today, the second strategy, we don't feel belongs with us. And so
Yeah, you had,
We have
You
one
have two?
strategy right now.
and you're down to one?
the
Yeah.
second strategy, I think we're gonna.
We
Well,
need to give it to, what is it?
well,
Yeah.
it comes across as a variety of well-maintained, accessible recreation facilities and activities for all. And for open space and natural resources, that just doesn't tie in. So one of the actions that was listed from Pioneer Valley, I had a conversation with Randy about, and it probably should go towards transportation, and that's create a walkable network by expanding the trail system and connecting trails, open spaces and sidewalks in town where feasible, right? And that could be a collaboration between both because of the open space component, but when it comes to actively building sidewalks and stuff, that's really not part of open space and natural resources.
Yeah, I think when we talked on the phone, there was some thought that it fit into public services and facilities.
I think that's.
As far as some of the recreational.
Yeah, so the second 2.2 under the action for that one is provide additional recreational facilities to meet the needs of all age groups in Southwick, including a skate park, playgrounds, and exploring the building of a multi-use recreation center. Again, I think it's just in the wrong chapter.
Yeah.
So if you look under, if we go down to just the one goal, we have a bevy of action items we're trying to
Less than 50 though.
probably,
Okay.
okay, our commitment, it will be less than 50. We're gonna have very active implementation committee.
So I mean, you have latitude to put in another strategy or two.
We do,
And
we do.
Move
We're trying to
those.
figure out how to go about
Can you
that.
read like 2 actions so we get a sense of like how broad or specific you guys are going with 50?
Mhm.
Do you want me to read the strategy?
49.9.
Do you want me to read the strategy
yeah.
first? Or- Okay, so the one strategy we have remaining is maintain, promote, and educate on the town's natural resources as the town continues to sustainably develop through stewardship of aquifers, air, soil, open spaces, trees and public spaces, forests, working farms, water bodies, and dark skies. So one action.
So right within yours, it feels like you can split that, like I was just saying, you guys, that maintain is one strategy, create is one strategy, and I think educate. Can
Maintain,
you break
promote,
your
and educate,
actions
yeah.
within
So
like
you do have
those
those
buckets?
Plus, wasn't one of your, in your vision about wildlife habitat thing?
Yes,
Mhm.
So wouldn't the strategy have to support achieving that vision?
right. I guess we were thinking of possibly adding stewardship of wildlife to that long line of nouns.
But you know what?
Or is that an action under education?
Yeah, I do like the idea of splitting it.
I think we should split it up, yeah.
It's more digestible that you're like, oh, there's 3 strategies, let's pick away at them as opposed to like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think we have right now like 15 different actions and they kind of cover all of that. They're very expansive, but they could be stratified into 3 more specific areas of maintenance, promotion, and education, maybe. I think that might be
Were you,
digestible.
working off of Ken Camilla's materials?
Yeah,
Some, we edited some of his, we
Yeah.
created some of our own that we just
Okay.
yeah.
were omitting or just overlooked.
Your open space plan was from 2020?
2020. So we've taken some of that and then updated the open space plan verbiage because there have been some changes in the last 3 years, so.
Okay, good feedback and, cultural and history.
Historical?
Oh, historical,
Yes.
yes.
We made one minor change to our vision statement, and just moved it to the present tense. Southwick is a vibrant, uniquely beautiful community that balances respect for our past, arts and culture with future progress. We have 2 strategies, and a total of 16 action items. Want to read the strategies?
Yes, that would be excellent.
Strategy 1, elevate the awareness, respect and pride of our town and our historical and cultural history to the point our daily actions demonstrate that the town has achieved that goal. And one of the action items was the beautification committee that Doug had.
We're gonna turn that up the flagpole again, huh? Okay.
Maybe call it something else.
Well,
I didn't call it that originally.
I know, I was overheard when I was right.
Strategy number 2, broaden cultural programming through the town, fostering relationships with local and regional groups. And one of the interesting, I think it's interesting, is we've made the recommendation that we establish a what's happening in Southwick page on the town website. There's currently no place that captures all historical, cultural, educational, governmental, or social upcoming activities in town.
Sounds like you need to establish a marketing department.
That was in one of the things.
Yes,
that
someone
was
mentioned
that.
that was actually in one of our
Was in
original
the-
notes.
The
Yeah,
last.
someone mentioned that, yeah.
Well, that's economic development.
And there's another sentence. This will embrace the exposure of events and increase the participation of people in town. How many times I heard through this entire process, well, I would have been there if I'd known about it. And you think about it, newspapers, subscriptions go down and down all the time. And there is no place that exists today. And we could tie this in with the communication that the people are asking for back from the government. It could be, this is what was accomplished in the last month by which groups. So that could be added to that as well. So that's where we're at now.
Thank you.
It's, all of that kind of ties into one of our strategic themes after the vision, encourage beautification, modernization, and corresponding marketing to ultimately increase awareness of the same. So we as a group, we're talking about that. So it ties back to a strategic theme.
All righty, public service and facilities, neither person on that team is here. Last time they had drafted a vision statement, so we'll have to see how that proceeds. Hopefully, they will listen to our recording of this meeting and hear what other people have been talking about, if there's any overlap, particularly with what Mr. McWilliams mentioned about some of the recreational things. Housing. Dory Boyd and myself have been involved in that.
So I read revision last time and I'm just rereading it for today. Good. Southwick has diverse housing options and designs that accommodate various ages and income levels, promoting sustainable building materials and methods, creating a community where residents can grow and live for a lifetime.
And
That was it. You all looking at me like,
do you,
expectantly.
she was waiting for a round of applause, but anyway, how many strategies?
And click.
So right now, we're at 3 strategies. Provide housing stock that protects and maintains the community's scenic, natural, and historic resources. Promote housing availability in Southwick that is financially attainable for and attractive to all ages and household configurations seeking to reside in town. Increase of capital A, affordable housing to make progress towards the Mass General Law, Chapter 40B affordability housing goal of 10% for Southwick. And then there's the 14, 12, I can't count right now, 14 actions like between the 3 strategies.
So there we are. Last but not least, the introduction and vision. That's Corey and Alida. You're working on, I guess, as much as you can do right now until everybody kind of has their materials in hand or over to you. So you're looking for folks to send you their what?
Yeah, they've been sending the vision, John sent me the land use vision, so he's compiling all the vision statements, and then once we get them, we're gonna try to write them in one voice and pick up those red threads I was talking about. I took the acknowledgement section that you sent, I added it on the top, so it goes before the executive summary. We've got a few paragraphs of the executive summary but that'll be written when all the chapters are done. I added in the red notes you gave me today, and Ken suggested that we add in, and he'll fill it in, so we just put a placeholder in, a section on like what the state requires. So we just, Alita did that. after the last meeting, she just put like a paragraph placeholder. Boxed it and it's just basically said, and here's where what the Commonwealth requires of master plans, because he's got boilerplate language for that. Other than that, I think we're ready and waiting to do the executive.
So do you want folks to send their visions to John or
That's how
directly to
that's
you?
how it was doing. If you want to send them to me, then I can
So
share them with you.
everybody's pretty much
I just sent yours, I know John already had it. Didn't make it.
okay. Good.
Yeah, the last email I got from him was a week ago, so. And then I'm copying them all into one page so that she and I can just look at them all.
Now that we're done getting feedback from the public, like that's closed now, do we have a time frame of when these chapters are to be, you know, in their final kind of drafts? What are we?
Well, my vision is to
Let's hear your vision.
I see what you do.
have something to present to the planning board in September. I think August is still going to be some review of materials. Roz was commenting, you know, are we gonna, as the committee now, look over everything again? Or when it's, you know, together? And I guess that's something we should kind of talk about. I think we have to trust the teams with their knowledge and volunteering because they feel they have that expertise. You know, I don't know that we are gonna challenge anybody's actions or whatever, but I guess at some point we'll, probably in August, sort of go through and hit the high points, but not get into, you know, everything in detail.
So let's get specific. When do we want the chapters done?
Next meeting.
So basically, we need to vote to accept it on August 17th, so it can be presented in September to the planning board.
Yeah,
So if we all want time to look at it like a week before,
yes.
so August 10th,
Yeah, I would say mid to late August, because.
well, our first scheduled meeting.
That's our first meeting.
When is our next meeting?
Our next meeting is July 20th.
Did we say final drafts on July 20th?
Yeah, I
We
would,
still have to write the executive summary.
yeah.
And do we all vote like one chapter at a time, or are we just saying like, yes, we all vote to approve this plan to present?
I think unless there's a hill you wanna die on, we say, you
The
know,
whole thing. So then when we hear back, you know, when we hear back from them, I think then there's an opportunity to make some changes at that point. You know, but to Marcus's point, like, I don't wanna, you know, get involved in, you know, Randy's stuff, like, that's his.
I just look at how long it took us to get consensus on some of the early
Yeah,
pages.
right.
I mean, that could be a whole other year and
Right.
a funding cycle to get all that. You know,
we don't wanna run out of money, right?
yeah,
We want
I don't wanna be. a part
our
of that.
work and our money, we gotta,
There's gotta be trust on the other teams,
Yeah.
that we trust the people that we've been working with
And
for
they
over
did
a
all-
year and a half.
Yeah.
Done all
Do their,
research.
their specific.
I think everybody has the best interests of Southwick in mind and, for moving along.
Doug has.
I have one.
Just tell.
Oh, I
can
think,
tell.
no, I think I heard some of it even just tonight, and I know I saw it from some of the public outreach stuff. Some of these themes or some of these actions or proposed actions are gonna come across multiple chapters. And it's gonna be an arduous task here to tie it all together. So I think that review process is not gonna be a singular one-off meeting, because there's gonna be some reconciliation, if you will, of that. And to Dave's point, we had multiple meetings to write a brochure for one of the public meetings. So I think that's gonna be more than one. It will be at least a meeting
But maybe the
to
two.
kind of direct, yeah,
meetings,
it
the
would
two
be that
Yeah.
reconciliation.
I would say, as Dave was suggesting, I believe, the final chapter by July 20th, next week. And then August, we have 2 meetings in August, we'll do the review. We could, you know, certain chapters on the first meeting in August, certain chapters on the second meeting in August. And then,
I mean, that first, from my experience, that first meeting or two, planning board after, stuff, did you guys go to a shorter, like only one meeting a month, like?
He's not on the planning board anymore.
Well, we were, so, summer schedule, did you guys do that this year?
We'll see once a month.
Right, so they're gonna have a lot on their
There'll be a
plate,
little
those first couple meetings.
but they may have to call, I would hope we would have a special meeting where we would present the plan. That would be the only,
Marcus is done. with the
Agenda
planning
item.
meeting.
so.
Hey, I'm
But
done with 9.
Dave Spina will have to carry the water for us on that one. I mean, we'll just promise it'll only be 2 hours, not 4 hours, and, no. Whatever, I think we'll work it out, but August, we'll, maybe do 4 chapters, and have it in September sometime to take to the planning board.
And remember that they meet twice in September,
Right.
so we can still hold through to September, even if it's late September.
Yeah, could be the last.
Or that extra third meeting in
But
September.
yeah, that's-
I think they're the Tuesday.
How many Tuesdays?
Hopefully there's 7.
Maybe.
No, just
We'll have a lot.
There's 5 Tuesdays in August.
Oh, wow,
they
Oh,
only
in
meet
August.
first meeting, So.
but they only meet once in August. We need September.
Yeah, so if we can get the final drafts on
Oh, you get
seven
next one in
twenty,
October.
then I'll talk to Alita and we can have the executive summary draft for the first meeting in August.
Okay. So that gets us under new business.
What would we review at those meetings in August, though? So the final draft chapters. Like, we're not gonna pick apart everyone's text, so what are we actually reviewing in those August meetings? Like, can we just knock them all off August?
We're not
3rd?
gonna pick apart the strategy, that'll be set. Or I mean, the vision. I think we could still provide feedback on the strategy. And, actions, if there's some that we think, should be added, or maybe moved from that chapter to the other chapter or something, you know what I mean?
And then where you have like an executive, what do you call it, that you have to write after every.
Yeah, and so it said even if there's some tweaks from the chapters that are 720, we'll at least be able to start pulling out these red threads. I mean, I've been making notes all along as to what I keep hearing over and over from both what you all are talking about and what the public is saying. So, and we've started writing it. We've got like a little bit of it that wasn't reliant upon the chapters.
So is it fair then on July 20th? We get these all to John emails them out. And I feel like by August 3rd, if we don't. I don't know, I feel like we're gonna cut Corey off and not give her enough time, so we can't keep talking about them again in August if we're gonna present it. And like, I'm not gonna pick apart Dave's chapter, so I don't know what we're actually reviewing in August.
Because if we do go through and, as you said, Marcus, go through and look at them and make suggestions and recommendations, right? Then we're going back into a rework cycle,
Yeah.
right? And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna look at the rework, and we may rework it again and get back. It just becomes a vicious thing.
So I feel like August 3rd, Corey's gonna read everyone, and if 2 of us are like diametrically opposed, she'll point that out. And we talk about those, but I don't know that we need. to
Any
do every
conflicts
chapter.
and duplications or whatever
Yeah.
in August.
And we probably just
And
be
we-
done on the first meeting.
I think we just empower those two to kind of focus on what needs to be resolved when we get back.
And agenda item on July 20th, what would we want to accomplish on July 20th? Everybody will have seen the draft chapters. We need to do more on the
Maybe any
20th.
other sort of like, does this belong in my chapter like you guys did? You know, as you kind of finish the chapter and you say, you know, does that bring it up then? Like we wrote it, but it feels like it belongs over there.
Well, that's like part of God's vision, like I feel like,
Yeah.
like we were saying, like we could meld them together, so I'd like to see, like, we'd like to get a copy of his, just because there was stuff in there that I think was really good, but it might really belong over here, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think a couple of the chapter groups are a little bit lagging, shall we say. So on the 20th, I think we want to make sure they're up the same level as, you know, everybody. So on the 20th, we might have like 2 agenda items. We won't do a work session again, I don't think. We
That's
don't-
when it's due on the 20th, our draft is due on the 20th.
Yeah,
Or before, do we have to have a little before?
Right,
So is it
how will
done?
we review it? How will we have time? Are we going to actually go through it during the meeting itself on the 20th, or? Is there,
however people feel about it. I don't know if folks can, I mean, there's a couple chapters here that are lagging behind.
right,
Are they gonna get it to everybody by the 20th? I don't think that's, I think we go maybe over the ones that are in pretty good shape, shall we say. Norm is gonna say something.
Yes,
Do I?
I started another project to try to find what we had missed. And I'm looking at SWOT, I'm looking at the vision, I'm looking at the themes, I'm looking at all the post meetings we had to the survey, plus the survey, capturing a long list of items that got healthy recommendations from the public. And then I'm going across and putting down the action item that applies to it, to try to find what we're missing. Because I'm sure we're missing some stuff. I need a little time to do that.
But we're not gonna be able to get I mean, some of those comments and stuff we're just a couple people, right, that.
Well, I'm not gonna go down to the 2 level, okay? But what it will at least do, it will at least, you will get to see, that, oh, we didn't discuss this at all. Should,
Isn't that the onus of us chapter writers?
well, if you follow, doesn't fall in the chapter.
I'm just thinking about, is that an awful lot of work for you? If they're
Well,
all
it
trying
is.
to capture it?
It is a lot of work.
Is it work we
No.
can take off your plate, I guess is my implied.
And I don't know that, I mean, we already have so much written as a.
All right, well, for instance, I don't believe we're gonna see anything in here about the school system. There was a lot of comments in the survey about the school system. I think we have a hole in it.
And that team has not reported public services and facilities. So,
Do we have to kind of give them, if we don't see even an early draft by such and such a date, that like it's gonna have to be picked up by another team?
well, we're gonna put out that the final chapter materials are due
In 14 days.
Yeah.
Like, don't use a date, they're due in 14 days.
August or July 20th.
So you're telling me to stop my project? I will.
What do you think?
well, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good, it's a bulleted list. I mean, you can make a bulleted list, right, without, and then, I don't know where you take it from.
I could see maybe if you could have that by August 3rd, then we would have a check, you know.
Are they, Norm, are they split out by our categories? 'Cause could you give them to the chapter people and say, have you touched on all these, rather than putting it all on your shoulders?
Is it formatted like in a?
No, it's very
Excel. Yeah.
You formatted how?
Just something that you'd easily be able to split out to the different teams, you know.
I haven't thought of it that way yet, but I probably
Just
should.
to see
Has to fit in a chapter.
if a team picks up on it.
Or even if you make the themes and then Marcus and I like do our chapter, did we address everything housing
Yeah,
that needed to be addressed? Which I feel like we sort of used to do this.
Yeah, we used the June 17th input as a check. We, you know, made a few tweaks.
yeah.
And everybody, I think, has had, hopefully had a chance, but maybe not. Diane Gale from the audience.
That was a brilliant idea, because I was worried about that myself, and I was thinking maybe took the top 2 high yes questions on the survey and bottom 2 no questions on the survey questions, and just capture those. That's very 20 simplified. and just list those, and everybody reviews that and make sure they got those. That might shortcut it and get you the highlights. Not the written questions, because those are all one-off opinions basically, but that is the survey question.
But we want to try to shoot for a final check on August, the August 3rd meeting. Because then we could make some corrections, and I'm gonna have to bird dog the public service and facilities crew. I think they're the only ones that are totally hasn't reported. So, yeah, okay. In the interest of time, I'd like to move into new business, which hopefully won't take a lot of time. I'm saying here, selection of master plan compilers. So based on a study that I did a few years ago, and also Cory and Alita's feelings that we need to have one voice. I use the term compilers, so they'll, this is the final, these are the crew, small team, that has it, fits it all together. So I think I would suggest Cory and Alita, Ken, Camilla, and John Goddard are going to be the compilers. And that will be a job, of course, that will hopefully get done by the end of August. And then we'll have our draft plan.
Second.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, very good. Everybody is nodding heads. All right. So, Cory, are you willing?
Well, I mean, we were already planning on compiling for the executive summary, but I think compiling the chapters is PVPC's job.
Okay,
Because
So-
Ken already told us, like, the diagrams I just put in as placeholders. He said, send me your original, and when I have the team put it together, I'll make sure we include it. So I'm getting that, that's part of what they were already planning on doing.
okay.
Which they technically own our chapters right now, because we're sending our edits back to him and he's updating his working file, so.
Okay, under routine business, we had a set of minutes from June 15th. Which I hold in my hand. And they are not very long. Hopefully people have had a chance to look at these. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of June 15th, 2023. Motion made by Norm Cheever, seconded by Randy Brown, to approve the minutes of June 15th, 2023. Roll call vote, Marcus Phelps, aye. David Spina.
Aye.
Doug Mogul.
Aye.
Randy Brown.
Aye.
Is Bert still with us?
I'm here. So I'm here and I vote on the minutes.
Dave McWilliams. Aye. Norm Cheever. Aye. Scott Lehman.
Aye.
Dory Boyd.
Aye.
Ross Terry.
Aye.
Cory Rowland.
Aye.
Marissa Cook Overgon.
Aye.
Thank you. With that vote, the minutes are approved. And I will pass them around. Any committee member comments? We've hung in there pretty good. 9:15, so let's see. Our next meeting is going to be July 20th. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Dory Boyd, seconded by
A lot of people.
David McWilliams.
Everybody.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.